leadership is growing individuals to become better versions of themselves. Also trying to develop people that work with me, or not necessarily work, but are around me, that essentially can replace what I do. I look at it as leadership is I'm not going to be here forever, whether it be here being Southwest Florida or just, in life in general. And I want to create people in this community that are making the community better, but will continue to make the community better when I'm gone. I've had experiences in my life as a leader where the programs grew, a lot of volunteer stuff, and did really well. But the minute I stepped down as a leader, I failed because I didn't grow somebody into that leadership position next. You need to grow somebody into that position. And if you're not growing that individual, then when it comes time to transfer leadership, that transfer just can cause, chaos.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Relentless Goal Achievers podcast. My name's Eric, and I'm so honored to have you here. Hey, if you're not in our Facebook community yet, get over there, join Relentless Goal Achievers Facebook community so me and you can connect in person, and I get to know you and you get to know me on a deeper level. But today I got a really amazing episode for you because this is a very good friend of mine, David Kelly, who decided to join me. But before I introduce David, let me just tell you a quick story. So some of you know that a little over 3 years ago, I moved to Florida. Now, I don't go to a church. I don't work in an office. I'm kind of home by myself. And most of my neighbors like to drink because they're retired. They're retired NYPD officers. So I was at a networking lunch and I asked the gentleman I was speaking with, I said, hey, how do I meet just good dudes here? Like, are there like men's groups or where do you guys go? I'm not into the drinking anymore. I don't want to party too much. And he said, I'm not a part of this, but there's a group called F3 and a buddy of mine does it. These guys are crazy. They meet at 5:15 in the morning at different parking lots. They work out, they have a good time, they talk leadership, and it's a good camaraderie. So he connects me with Wolverine, which is one of our guys, and everybody has a goofy nickname. I'm Sonic Boom. David is Bing. And it was all over. Next day, I showed up at 5:15, fell in love with the guys in the group. And the person that's sitting with me today is the founder of F3 Suncoast. He's the guy that started the whole thing down here in Florida when he moved here from the Carolinas. Was it North Carolina or South Carolina?
Just over the border in South Carolina.
South Carolina, yeah. So when he moved here from South Carolina 7-8 years ago, or what was it?
Just over 7 years ago, yeah.
Yeah, and started this group for men that now has how many members in it?
Our F3 Suncoast itself is the mailing list has about 900 guys on it.
That's pretty cool. 900 guys. That means that at one point, 900 men showed up to work out at 5:15 in the morning. Not 900 don't show up every day, even though it's all free. It's open to all men, and we encourage that. But anybody who can move to a brand new place and create something that has 900 members from scratch without knowing anybody, that's a good leader because that's who people follow. So today we're going to talk all about leadership. Bing, welcome, brother.
Appreciate it, Sonic Boom. I've been looking forward to this for quite a while. We've talked about doing this, and I think you having Steve Martin on a couple of weeks ago made me a little envious. So hopefully I'll get better viewership than Ripken did. No, just kidding. Great guy.
You definitely will.
Great guy.
Yeah, you're better looking than Ripken, so yeah. You got a good chance.
Yeah.
But besides F3, David's also the chief marketing officer for Gettle Automotive. They are probably the leader in auto dealers or in auto sales here in the local area, but they have 21 dealerships between Florida and Georgia. And so you are chief marketing officer, which means that you are responsible for all 21 locations. So everybody's marketing department, the new ways to market, new ways to attract new clients into your doors. I mean, my goodness, dude, that's a lot. You travel on private jets and you're going to meetings.
I can't take credit for any of that. I was the right guy at the right place, man. No, it's been a really exciting endeavor. I mean, just kind of tying the two together. I mean, I moved to Florida 7 years ago, I was working as a consultant with an ad agency for Southeast Toyota, which is the distributor for Toyota, as a marketing consultant. And, they needed a guy in Florida. So I came down here, and within the first week of being here, this group, I had met with their Toyota stores. We now have 5 Toyota stores, but at one point in time I met with them, and the COO called me after one of the meetings and said, we haven't met yet, but the next time you're in one of my stores, I want to be there. Which I thought, did I do something wrong? Like, why? Like, why would this be? So scheduled a meeting, and next thing I know, right after my moving truck is showing up, he's calling, trying to get a breakfast put together. And, 7 years later, here I am. I left the company that I was with for 10 plus years that I moved here for, to then become. And it was funny because when he was asking me about chief marketing officers, I really thought he was just looking for me to help find somebody for him, because in my role as consultant, I had done that for a couple auto groups. And as he looked at me across the table, he goes, I don't need help. I found the guy, and it's you. And I'm like, yeah, but I'll be happy to help you guys. He goes, no, we don't want to share you. Like, we want all of you, and we want you to handle not just our Toyota stores, but all of our stores. So it was honored. But I tell you, moving to a market where I knew nobody, we picked Lakewood Ranch as, recommendation of a good friend up in the Carolinas, and one of my clients happened to live nearby, and just settled into this area. And as I was leaving the Carolinas, a good friend of mine up in Charlotte and Fort Mill and that area said, dude, you're not saying goodbye. Like, you're going to launch this down in Florida. And man, I had every valid excuse not to do it. It was, I know nobody. I'm going down there, taking over a new territory. I would be traveling all the time with my old job. And the good friend of mine is Frank Schwartz, which I believe we've either had him on your podcast or we've talked about it. But Dark Helmet is now, Dark Helmet is now, great nickname for a guy with the last name Schwartz, is over all of F3 internet, the whole organization. He's the official Nantan president of F3 now. He just kept telling me, like, dude, these are excuses. Like, you're going to do this. And after I got down here, he was relentless. He put me into a group of other men that had moved and were talking about starting, and he wouldn't let me say no. So April 1st of 2017, that was official day number 1. And it's kind of convenient because I also picked it to be my birthday. Not intentional. It happened to be a Saturday. It happened to be, 3 months after we had officially moved, 4 months in. And buddy, day 1 was 5 of us. There was my son, because I figured if nobody else showed up, at least I had one person there with me. And another guy we call Recall. He was actually another former client of mine that was relocating, and he had done F3 up in Columbia, South Carolina, I believe. And so he joined us. And then 2 guys that were complete strangers. Just
how did they hear about it?
One, I believe, was from a Facebook post, and then the other was from like a next door neighborhood post. Come on, I'm a marketing guy, so I'm going to use all these resources to get the word out there. But one of those gentlemen who's still extremely active with us today, Scott McKay, also nicknamed Drake, he said to me on day 1, he goes, dude, this community needs what you're bringing. This thing is going to be massive. And I had no idea. Again, I'm still new to the area. I'm thinking massive. Like, I don't know that many more people, but Drake is extremely connected in this community, very involved in one of the largest non-denominational churches in town. And he had the desire. He saw the need for this in the community, and introduced it as a men's group through the church. Let people know, like, we're not affiliated with one church. The F3 is fitness, fellowship, and faith. But that faith element, we welcome every man. And that faith element is just the belief in any higher power. So, we're not just a Christian group. We're not specific to one church. And that really attracted a lot of guys. And we went from having 5 of us to 7 of us to 9 of us, till one weekend we had 45 guys at a workout, and I think we killed half of them. Probably should have dialed back that day, but the ones that stuck around, I mean, have been leaders of the group since. I mean, Ripken was one of those guys that was part of that initial flow of men, and we see the impact he's made on the group. So it's a crazy story, and I would never have imagined. Here we are almost 7 years later, and we're working on putting together a workout here to celebrate our anniversary, and it's probably going to have 100+ guys from all over Southwest Florida. And we've got commitments from Clearwater, St. Pete, Orlando, Fort Myers, Tampa. I mean, these are all regions that our region had an impact on.
What day are you going to do that?
April 6th. So April 6th, we'll be in Bradenton. We're going to actually go to downtown Bradenton, hit a location that we've never done before, just to see how other many of men that we could potentially get by being on the Riverwalk in downtown Bradenton.
That's awesome, man. I wish I could be there, but I am celebrating Willy Wonka's birthday. That's my little guy who's also an F3 member.
Yep.
His birthday's April 2nd, and he really wanted us to go to Universal, so that's where we're going to be that weekend.
Fitting place for Willy Wonka to go.
That's right.
Yeah.
Hey, let me ask you a couple of questions, Dave. So, number one, what did the COO see in you or hear about you that he said, hey, next time I want to be in that meeting and we found our guy?
Yeah, so, during the time that this all happened, I mean, I was unaware of this, but they were contemplating changes in the organization, whether they wanted to either bring in a different ad agency, consolidate ad agencies, but they were also in the process of buying a 7-group dealership group down south of here in Punta Gorda, Florida. So the realization for him was, we're going to be spending a lot more money in advertising. We're going to be launching all these new stores and rebranding them. And at the time, there was really no controls in place for marketing. I mean, each general manager got their budget from the COO, and they kind of did with the agency what they wanted to do, but there's no accountability placed on the agencies. There's no accountability placed on the GMs to control that spend. So my presentation, I came in and I was challenging some of the status quo of what I was seeing the group was doing. And that was my role. I mean, the distributor paid our fee to go in and sit down with the dealerships and analyze exactly where they're spending their money and what the return on investment looked like. And the dealerships loved it because we were a free resource and we weren't biased. Like, we didn't have any connections with any one vendor, that if I recommended a vendor or recommended a few vendors, it was simply because, we saw the success that vendor had in other stores. So the dealers loved it. And that's what they liked about it here at the Get Automotive Group, was we were coming in with recommendations and analyzing what they were currently doing and recommending what they should be doing differently. And that's what he needed. Like, he needed somebody to come in and hold those vendors accountable, hold the stores accountable, but measure the success. And everything in my presentation was that. And he wanted that for all, at the time, 16, 17 stores. And so it was really a lot of accountability. It was innovative thinking. It was holding those agencies accountable, because we're spending millions and millions of dollars, and we want to make sure that we're getting what we should be getting out of it. The reality is, a general manager is a phenomenal leader of their dealerships. I mean, these guys run the entire dealership, sales, service, parts, body shop for some of them, but they're not marketing guys. They have great ideas, but they're not all marketing guys, and to be able to have a marketing guy to take that weight off of them, then, and my role as chief marketing officer, I'm still a consultant within the group. And so the GM has an idea of what they want to do. They're going to run it up the flagpole, talk to me about it, work with the agency about it. At the end of the day, success of each dealership falls on each of the general managers. So as a marketing guy, I'm not going to come in and say, you must do it X, Y, and Z. You must only do it this way. We're going to work together. We're going to formulate the ideas together, and they're going to own the idea. Because at the end of the day, I mean, if the store fails it doesn't fail simply because of marketing. It may have failed because of inventory, people, process, whatever it might be. We want to make sure that we're providing them all the best resources from a marketing standpoint.
How do you stay, like, marketing is one of those things that changes at a drop of a dime. It seems like every single day, Facebook, Google, YouTube, they change their algorithms. Like, as a leader, how do you stay in front of that?
So that's another big reason why I'm here is just we have great resources. We have great agencies that we work with. So we do expect them to bring innovation to the table. And so I meet with them weekly to review what changes are happening, what new technology comes into play. A lot of research. I'm a big podcast guy. I think you're fully aware of that because every time you launch one, I'm sending you feedback and talking to you about it. Probably biggest number one fan of your podcast.
Thank you.
So, to me, a lot of that stuff, like you had a guy on that talked about email marketing and I listen to that kind of stuff and then dig in and figure out if it could be applied to my business or are we applying it? So a lot of podcast listening, a lot of just research in general, relying on our agencies to be a part of it. And there's a lot of forums out there where we talk about different things. The thing that's kind of neat about this space is there's probably 5 or 6 other chief marketing officers that I stay close in touch with. And if a vendor gets in front of me, then, the 5 of us will talk about it. Hey, have you seen this? What are you thinking? I mean, really the biggest thing right now is all this AI. I mean, it is absolutely crazy. Well, it's crazy what people call AI. I think every vendor wants to call their product AI. But at the end of the day, there's only a handful of companies I think are really using artificial intelligence to come up with products. And man, it is amazing, the products that are coming about. So really it's been about just being a student of the business and learning. And that was, as a consultant, that was what was expected of me, was to come in with ideas. And that's one thing I've kept in place, is making sure that I'm open to new ideas and that I'm bringing new ideas to the table.
I love that, man.
Yeah.
Absolutely love it. Last question about the car stuff, and then we're going to get into dealership or leadership. Dealership, leadership, very close.
Yes.
How do you overcome the stigma of car sales?
Yeah, it's tough, man. It's it's hard. I mean, we recognize the fact that you can't please everybody. I actually have a conversation with our owner. His office is 2 doors down from me, and he'll walk by here probably any minute now. And I've always asked him that. I said, man, your name is on the majority of our buildings. And one of my roles is going through, and handling all the reputation management. And you see a lot of people that are not happy, and they're going to let people know. And his answer was the best answer I've heard. He goes, yeah, we can't please everybody. It's an emotional purchase. If we have to tell somebody we can't get them qualified for a loan, like, they think it's our fault. Most cases, it's kind of their history. It's their fault. Where we can control is if our individual staff members are doing things that misrepresent his name, that's when he gets upset. And if he's seeing people that are either doing things that are intentional or harming the customers in any way, whether it be in their credit scores or just not getting the vehicle they want, then he gets upset. So we have a big culture of, Jim's name's on the building. We need to take care of the customer as if they're Jim's, friends, and because we're representing his name. So it's tough, man. I mean, advertising and the car business, could you get any lower in the perceived scumbag meter? I mean, probably not, but I know exactly what our goals are with this company, and I know what we're trying to do and how to represent the company in the community. And I see the good reviews as much as I see the bad reviews. And no, we don't pay customers to write reviews about us. They're legit, they're real, and some of them are raw and some of them are great. So I know we're helping a lot of people in the community. A lot of our good buddies, I've helped them get their kids their first car. Like, that's a memory that's going to last forever. And then the other thing is that I know what Jim does in this community. Jim has a foundation that he's intentionally formed to give money back to the community in every way possible. And I am very fortunate to be the guy that gets to represent Jim in a lot of that charitable giving. It's not my money, that's his money, but he's not a big public guy. He's not the guy that wants to be out front, but he's giving away cars to veterans, which you've been
I've seen you give 2 cars away to veterans.
Yeah.
One guy who was on his way down to help people after the hurricane hit down by Fort Myers.
Yeah.
His truck got flooded. He couldn't get to work, and you guys gave him a brand new car. That was like, I'm getting goosebumps because it was like, but I was there. I mean, it was just so emotional and so cool that you guys did that.
I get to be a part of that, like, a lot throughout the year, whether it's through education. You know, we sponsor a lot of the local schools that have automotive departments where they'll teach technicians. I mean, selfishly, yeah, we get to get in on these kids, and we now have 2 or 3 kids that are working for us that are still in high school. But Jim has donated, close to $100,000 to the school's automotive programs. I mean, it's not cheap to run, and we give them a lot of our what we would think is trash because it's a broken transmission. These programs love that because then they could build it, rebuild it, fix it, do what they need to do. So a lot of our trash we offer up to the schools, and they love it. So just knowing that, it's the car business. Yeah, it gets a bad rap. But when you're in the car business and you see what they can do to give back to the community, and working for a guy like I work for, it's phenomenal. It's great to be a part of it. So, but it hurts, man. I open up the Nextdoor app and you see a lot of people that are not happy. But generally that's where people find their platform to complain. And people that are happy don't look for platforms to share. They're telling their friends, but they're not looking for a huge audience. So, I get past. I sleep just fine at night.
No, that's great. You guys seem like you're doing great. I personally have not bought a car from you yet, but I'm sure it's coming with 2 teenage boys growing up.
Hey, we got BMW and Porsche. Those boys could be set up nicely.
Yeah. All right. So let's shift over to leadership. How would you define leadership?
To me, leadership, it's all about servant leadership, and it's all about helping grow people.
You can't define leadership with the word leadership.
I do, and I hate because you always push me to further directions with your question.
Yes, define leadership.
To me, leadership is growing individuals to become better versions of themselves, and also trying to develop people that work with me, or not necessarily work, but are around me, that essentially can replace what I do. I look at as leadership is I'm not going to be here forever, whether it be here being Southwest Florida or just, in life in general. And I want to create people in this community that are making the community better, but will continue to make the community better when I'm gone. And if as a leader, I've had experiences in my life as a leader where the programs grew, a lot of volunteer stuff, and did really well. But the minute I stepped down as a leader, I failed because I didn't grow somebody into that leadership position next. And as simple as a camping group in the Carolinas, dads and kids, Indian guides, adventure guides through the YMCA. Great program. Lots of dads have phenomenal experiences with their kids going camping. It's usually chaos. It's phenomenal. My kids still talk about the crazy stuff that we let them do on these campouts. Your boys would love something like that. Just daddy and kid time. And 2-3 years went by. I stepped into the leadership role with the guy that had started it. And Jason and I had a great thing going. And when it came time that our kids were aging out, we were looking for someone else to step up, but we realized we never groomed anybody. Like, they looked at the program as, man, this thing is great. Jason and Dave do a great job leading this thing, but nobody felt like they could step into our shoes because they were either fearful of not doing as good of a job or didn't know what we were doing to make it successful. And that's all our faults. And when I launched F3 here in the Suncoast, I kept that in my memory. I'm like, you know what, if it gets to a point, because one thing with F3 is the leadership is all about, rotating leadership. And just like in the military, a guy is only going to be in his leadership position for so many years. you need to grow somebody into that position. And if you're not growing that individual, then when it comes time to transfer leadership, that transfer just can cause, chaos. And that's what happened in the camping group. And I wasn't going to let that happen in F3 Suncoast. I was determined to make sure that this thing would stay alive for years and years to come. So,
what do you think it was about Dark Helmet that needed to get you to start a group here? Like, why does a guy in South Carolina care whether you start a group in Florida or not?
Because we all see the benefits of what F3 has done in our lives. And there's men all over the world that could benefit from what F3 has done in my life. It's free. I mean, it is legit.
Yeah, but why do you care? Like men, okay, I'll put it to you this way. Like men can benefit from eating salads, right? But when you're out to lunch and you see somebody ordering a greasy cheeseburger, you're not like, hey, dude, you should go get a salad.
You're not? You don't say that?
No, not typically to strangers, no.
No, so it's not strangers, but it's people that you form relationship with. And if you care about that person, then you're going to have that conversation with them, especially if you see that person is growing in ways that they shouldn't be growing because of their multitude of cheeseburgers. So I would say, it's not about everybody. It's about those that we have relationships with. And how deep are those relationships? I've had conversations with guys in F3 about F3 in Walmarts that are standing over looking at weight equipment and going to them, hey man, looks like you're trying to start on a workout journey. Yeah, I sure am. And I'm like, well, hey, I got something I'd love to share with you. And, here's an opportunity. And it's not just a workout. It's exactly what you said to open the podcast. It's a group of great dudes that, hold each other accountable. It challenges your thinking and it pushes us into leadership roles. And that's where guys start to go, you were the kind of guy we'd all love to have to talk to. I would love to have every guy take the bait the next day and show up and contribute to the group like you have. But the reality is, a lot of guys just aren't ready for the commitment, but you don't stop there. Dark Helmet did not succeed on his first ask. It took him a while and it took him a bunch of texts when I was down here because he knew what I could give to this community. And he knew that there's men in Southwest Florida who needed what we had in F3. And he was right. And he was absolutely right. So, I'm glad I listened.
I agree with that. I just want to, because it's not just Southwest Florida. We're now in Canada, Uganda.
Yeah.
Where else? Where else in the world?
Spain, England. Spain? It's actually, England is growing rapidly. In Germany, Australia, there's a couple of groups that aren't F3, but they started because of their exposure to F3 and started their own groups, and they're almost identical to what we have, just because they learned what F3 did, and we embrace that. We welcome them copying what we have, because we're not here to make money on this program. We're here to help unlock that modern day warrior. We're here to help unlock men who, might be in a situation in life where on the outside they look happy. They think that things are going well, but something's missing inside them. And the epidemic of male loneliness is just so rampant in this world. And you keep seeing articles all over. New York Times published, Wall Street Journal's published something. All the publications are talking about this epidemic of male loneliness. And heck, COVID did not help the situation with putting us all into isolation. COVID was phenomenal for me with F3. The bonds that I formed with maybe even smaller groups of men, because we're trying to honor some of the rules that were in the community. Thank God we were in Florida during that time. But the reality is that men are often committing suicide because they don't have the support system that they need to be able to lean on. And that support system for me is men that are walking in a similar path in life. It's men like you that are willing to lean on people. I mean, I've gone through some tough times with my health recently, and the thought of some of the news that I've received for my health would have probably crushed me if it weren't for the fact that I knew I had men that were going to support me in F3, and that I had other options for fitness than just running. And I'm able to get out there and do boot camps and, some cycling and rucking and all that kind of stuff. and continue on the health journey that I've been on has just been phenomenal. So, I mean, seeing the growth, I mean, just quick history. I mean, F3 started in one park in Charlotte, and it started because another workout group had been formed and had gotten so big. And the leader of that group was like, it's getting big. I think it's too big. We're going to stop this. And two of the men that were at that group were like, it's getting big for a reason. Like, men want this. Men need this. And all of a sudden, they started doing it themselves, very informally. Didn't have the core principles, didn't have the mission statement. It was just a bunch of dudes working out, and it just started to formulate. And then they realized it is getting too big. And the idea of a small workout group is that you get maybe 15 to 18 guys. You get much bigger than that, guys get left behind. Guys get lost in the crowd. So they decided, hey, why don't you two that live the furthest away from the workout, why don't you go start one in South Charlotte and do the same thing? And of course, like, you hate leaving all your buddies, but a bunch of your buddies join you, and now you got two workouts that might have 15 guys. And then it grows to the next location. You got another workout, and now you've got guys that were asking in Spartanburg, South Carolina, and Atlanta, going, hey, I was in town working out with you guys, and I want to start that. How do I get that started? And that's how this thing spread. I mean, it legitimately spreaded by two guys realizing, like, there's a need, and that need needs to be filled. And as it formed, both Dredd and OBT, who are the original founders, and Dredd's been a guest on your podcast, they've realized, okay, we need to formalize this a little bit, but there are core principles. There's a mission statement. There's not rules. Like, if you follow those 5 core principles, it's free, it's outdoors, it's open to all men, it's led in a rotation, and it ends in a circle of trust. Those 5 things, if it's satisfied, it's F3. You want to start having a workout inside of an LA Fitness, it's not F3. Maybe a bunch of guys that do F3 that are going, but it's not going to show up on the F3 map because there's a barrier of entry. Like, I got to pay to go to that, and that's not what F3 is about. We eliminate all barriers of entry to get you in. So, and then the leadership piece within F3, it's that rotation, like leading in a rotation. Like, you led your first workout. You had to do the work. You're nervous. You're a leader trainer, like a leadership trainer. But had you led anybody in a workout like that? Had you gotten up and showed up at 5:15 and told guys, this is what we're going to do and this is how we're going to do it? And all 18 of those guys followed. Like there's no question. Like, we recognize this person's been designated as a leader today. I'm going to respect his authority. He may have never done this before, but he's trying. He's learning how to lead. And that's where the leadership element comes into play within F3, is it's almost kind of like a secret leadership training group, because we're encouraging men to step out of their comfort zone and lead something. Just lead something. And if they lead a workout, they start to gain confidence and they start to realize, like, wow, like those guys, like, I mean, the coolest thing to me is we've had 11 and 12-year-olds lead us in workouts. I mean, it just blows my mind. And there's now, it's actually his birthday today, but one of our buddy's sons, so Phil Conway, another guest on your podcast, his son's birthday is today. He led us in a workout, and he was probably 13 years old when he did it. And truthfully, it was one of the more powerful workouts that I've been to, from a structure, from an organization, to have a young kid leading us in cadence counting. But at the end, he led us in a closing message that was so powerful and so impactful. I actually took a picture of him on a knee, with all these grown men around him. And by the way, that kid is now leading Bible groups in a public high school. Like, him and a friend recognized that they have something they want to share, and he has chosen to start a group in a hostile territory. I mean, a place where, like, that kind of stuff doesn't get talked about a whole lot, but it has never stopped Cody from wanting to be that leader and share something he's passionate about. And I tend to think that him leading that workout when he was 13 years old probably helped catapult some of the confidence to do what he's doing today. So you just, to me, the leadership is powerful. To me, I want to grow. Those are the kind of things I said earlier. I want to grow people into leadership positions. I want to grow people with their confidence. And I feel like that's a mission of mine. And F3 has just helped uncover that, and seeing people walk a little bit more confidently away from the workout into their family life, into their workplace, and into the community, all tells me that F3 is working for these guys. Because many of them have said, I would never have thought I just did at work what I thought I would do. I would never have done what I did with my family if it weren't for the confidence I gained in F3.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, man.
Yeah.
We in one of the leadership principles is that you don't attract or lead people that you want to attract and lead. You attract and lead people who are like you. And so if you want to be a good leader, you got to lead yourself first.
Yeah.
And nothing says leader like being in a parking lot at 5:15 in the morning because you said you're going to do it, and committing to it and being there and putting yourself through a grueling workout and struggling with other men who are around you, and then committing to certain things that you're going to do and sticking to them, and speaking about leadership and sharing some of the struggles you have, or helping somebody else who's going through struggles around you. It truly is a magical group. And if you're a man listening and you don't have men around you who support you, you might feel lonely or whatever, looking to grow leadership, maybe you're looking to get better into health and fitness. Check out F3 Nation wherever you are, f3nation.com. See, and then go to find a workout near me, put in your zip code and see if there's something near you. It's all free. You got nothing to lose, but maybe an hour of sleep. But you got everything to gain, man.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about the leadership kind of Bible of F3, the Q source. And I'll link to this in the manual or in a link in the comments below. But we get together every Wednesday, and this is nationwide, right? Everybody kind of reads a chapter and we discuss different chapters. Can you break this book down for us, Bing?
Yeah, it's real simple. So it was written by one of the founders of F3, David Redding, who we call Dredd. But essentially, it's a leadership guide. I mean, it's not a step-by-step manual that you must follow to be a leader. But what it really does is it breaks it down into 4 quadrants. It's the get right, live right, lead right, and then leave right. So the whole idea is about creating virtuous leaders who are looking to grow those underneath them into a leadership position, into a better position in life. But really the whole idea is from a get right standpoint, you follow it week to week, as you mentioned, and there's a cue point for each week that we go through. But, ultimately the get right is, in your life, you yourself need to get right. If you want to be a leader, but you're living a life of maybe less wholesome, less desirable way of life, then kind of hard to get people to follow you. Because
what does that look like?
Whether it be addictions, whether it be, guys battle with alcoholism, guys will battle with pornography, whatever it might be. If there's something in your life that's holding you back from being more of a virtuous leader. And this is where it's kind of neat to me, because it's not saying you must be a Christian to be a good leader. This is all about you must be a good person to be a great leader. This whole book, there's talks, there's mentions of different Christian principles in it, but there's also mentions of other religions in it. So the whole idea is about kind of creating that foundation of, getting beyond all of those, those gestures in your life, those things that might be holding you back from being a good leader. But then once you get right, it talks about living right. And then that's the second quadrant. And living right is, you've got to do a lot of things. There's a lot of practice involved, and there's a lot of things involved and things that you need in your life to help you stay right. Because as you go on, we've all been, the way I love to compare it is we've all been to conferences, and you get really worked up and excited about all the momentum and all the energy that you just gained from that conference. And you get back home and you're surrounded by a bunch of people that weren't at that conference. Happens in work, happens in personal life, and you just get back into your usual routine. So the live right part of it requires you and encourages you surround yourself with a group of people, a group of men especially, that can hold you accountable to what you're getting right. Yeah, maybe you struggle with your diet. Maybe you struggle with lack of exercise. Maybe you struggle with anger. Whatever is your gesture, then there's blind spots, man. Like, you don't know they're coming up. You don't realize that you've had that fifth cheeseburger of the week. You don't realize that you're still short to temper and you're still short to get mad at people. Those men that are around you will recognize that, because you've let your guard down to let them in to help you hold you accountable to some of these things that you want to improve on. So that's and the other thing that's big within the live right is aligning your relationships in your life. And I'm not going to get too deep into it, but at the end of the day, if you're not prioritizing your relationships in your life, you're going to fail. And the most important relationship is your spouse. I mean, to me, that's a relationship that's terminable at any point in time. And if you allow other things in your life take away from the importance of that relationship with your spouse, then that relationship is going to fail. Your next most important relationship is your children, your 2.0s. And buddy, you do a phenomenal job of this. I love watching you raise your boys, because they are clearly a big priority of yours. And you're willing to go all measures to make them successful. And that's a very big principle of the live right is how much are we supposed to give to our children to make them successful? Everything. I mean, that's a moldable relationship that, as you watch them grow, you're able to mold them into the people that they should be to be that next leader in the community. And your kids, my kids, and hopefully a lot of the guys in F3, we see what they're doing with their what we call 2.0s, our kids. And then it gets into the relationships of your kind of your closest friends, then your next level of friends, and then your work relationships. And by the way, I mentioned work relationships last because those relationships take a lot of our time. Like, those are the relationships, because we're at work more than we're often home. But when you get home, how do you turn that off, and how do you become that father? How do you become that leader in your household that you're called to be? Because a lot of times, we think that as men, our family is successful because of our salary. Our family is successful because of our career and what we've provided financially. No, your family needs more than just the finances you provide. Your family needs that leader that they're looking for, and that's the live right. Is how do we set ourselves up so we can continually not only stay right but live right, so then we can become effective leaders and good leaders. And the third quadrant being the lead right, you could take and apply all those principles that you're learning from getting right and living right to now help form leadership strategies for the things that you're involved in and taking leadership roles. One of those being, how do we transfer leadership? How do we get more followers? How do we get more people involved? And how do we make more men into leaders? And then, the ultimate goal is that fourth quadrant. And I mentioned it earlier, like when I leave, whether it be just this community or when I leave this earth, what kind of impact have I made? And what is the legacy that I'm leaving behind? Because to me, that is my ultimate goal. The legacy that I've left on my kids, the legacy that I've left on my community, the legacy I've left on work. What have I done when I've gotten right to then live right, to then lead right, to make that legacy? Because ultimately, to me, a successful leader not only raises people around him to replace them, but when that leader leaves the room, do his principles stay true? Do his principles still exist? Or when a leader leaves a room, do they say, that guy's a nut job, we're going to do the opposite? Well, then you haven't done a very good job leading. You haven't gotten them to buy into your vision. You haven't articulated your vision very well. You haven't been able to persuade those people very well. And then you haven't been able to encourage or exhortate them to come over the hurdles that are going to come because of some of the changes that you're causing. So at the end of the day, you want to be a leader who then can lead when his presence isn't even, known and his presence. You want people to say, hey, listen, like I look at F3 Suncoast as wildly successful, but it's not wildly successful because I was there day one. It's wildly successful because of the men that have bought into the mission of F3 here in F3 Suncoast and realize like it's our mission to plant, grow, and serve small workout groups for men for the invigoration of male community leadership. Guys realize that, and they want to do all they could do to grow it. They want to do all they could do. And then as we sit here, now we're on our fourth leader of F3 Suncoast. It's never been better. I mean, I look at the leadership that we had from Lancelot to Ripken to now Brutus, and I couldn't have asked for a better transition to leadership. And how is that evident? Workouts, 2 or 3 workouts almost every day. And we keep getting new guys. We're celebrating 7 years of F3 here in about 2 weeks. That's why it's successful. But it's also successful because I know Brutus has his eye on the next leader already. I know he's already, helping fill other leadership positions within the group. And heck, I'm taking another leadership position back in the region as a site leader. Like, I mean, here's a guy I've progressed all the way through, and I've sat on the nation's leadership team. But I can still apply to the group. I can still give back to the group. And so if you don't show up with your rucksacks on Wednesdays, the site queue is not going to be happy about it. So,
there you go.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Ooh, all right. So can you, I know you're not a big kind of bragger or like to talk about yourself too much, but people would like to hear personal story of you. So could you walk me through the 4 quadrants of Q Source through your life?
Yeah.
Where you were when you started to get right, what that looked like.
Yeah.
What happened when you were living right,
Yeah. No, that's a great thing. It's funny because I got right long before F3 even existed. When I was in college.
You think you got right?
I think so.
Buddy, I know you. You ain't right.
I try, buddy. At the end of the day, I have a very dear friend of mine that, from college who recognized that I was following a path that I should not be following as it relates to alcohol. So, he challenged me in my sophomore year that I should probably quit drinking. I did. I proved to him that I could quit drinking. So I started again, and it was worse. It was much worse. And that same friend, Paul, said to me, okay, great. You proved it to me that you could quit once. Prove it to you that you could quit forever. Like, this is something that you need to be. He knew my background. He knew, that there's addiction in my family, and they've all quit, and he just wanted to point that out to me, and did. That same guy also introduced me to my now wife of 23 years. So I give a lot of thanks to Paul. But fast forward, that's me getting right. And that's me giving the opportunity now, even within F3, to share my story of, what my life has been like because I quit drinking, and the decisions I've been able to make. My career has flourished, and a lot of it I give credit to is a clear mind and clear goals and clear direction. But also not having a jester like alcohol that was holding me back. I mean, just because I quit drinking doesn't mean I don't have other things that I'm working on to become a better man. Living right, F3 has given me the opportunity to, I've got 3 of my brothers that we call a shield lock, and the 4 of us meet at least monthly, and it's a lot more than that. They're very purposeful conversations. We all live in the same town. We're all kind of in the same stage of life. And we have those hard conversations, and they know what I'm struggling with. I know what they're struggling with, and we could have those difficult conversations to be able to help one another, be better leaders within our families and in our communities and our work. If there's ever a time that I know that I'm in a position where either I'm tempted to go back to drinking, man, one of those 3 guys are probably going to be one of the first I call. Which that temptation for me just doesn't exist. I mean, I'm fortunate for that. But if I get to the point where I know something else is starting to creep up, I could send a text to those 3 guys, and not only would they be on my doorstep, but they'd be there with not just the answers, but the questions that they know I need to ask myself in order to get back to living right. But then, through all that confidence that I've gained and the knowledge that I've gained through those guys, I mean, then the whole live right or the whole lead right, I don't shy away from the opportunity to take in leadership positions in just about anything I get involved in. My wife gets annoyed by that. She's like, why can't you just be a member? Like, why can't you just do it? But I just see where there's opportunity, not just for me, it's opportunities for the group and it's opportunities for the members that are in the group to become better leaders. And so it's all, to me, it's that servant leadership is how can I serve those that are in the group to make the group better for the individuals. So, to me, the lead right, I finally, within the last 6 months or so, am not leading in a national level position at F3 because once I handed over the reins to Lancelot, then Dark Helmet reared his head again and asked me to step into a leadership position to help lead all of F3 Nation's expansion. He saw the success we had here and he wanted me to provide the resources to help across the world. And it was a huge honor. Built a team that really didn't exist before, put processes in place to help men be able to launch F3, handed those reins over thinking, okay, I get to go back and just be a PAX and enjoy myself. And, Dark Helmet calls me the next day and says, oh, by the way, we're looking for a chief marketing officer, volunteer position, but help us from a marketing standpoint for F3 Nation. And how do you say no to that? I mean, it's my work, it's my passion, and now I get to apply it to something I love within F3. So I did that for a year and a half, and then was able to hand that over to another guy that does amazing work. So it's the realization that, and this is where I go back to my adventure guides, and I wasn't living right. I hadn't gotten right at that point. It was easier as a leader just to do the work and just get it done. Just do the work, set up the camp outings, set up the food. We didn't even ask for volunteers to help with the food. Like, head down, Jason and I, we got this. No one else is going to contribute. I started to do that in F3. Like, when I launched this thing, man, I'm like, I'm doing the newsletter. I'm doing the website. I'm going to lead all the workouts. I'm going to do all this. And it hit me hard, saying that's where Adventure Guides fell apart and does not exist in that YMCA in South Carolina. If we had done it differently, then there's probably thousands of more kids that could have had the experience that my kids had, and I wasn't going to let that failure repeat itself. So to me, that was the lead right. That was me realizing, like, I do need to make sure that I empower others in the group to lead, and then I could work with them as leaders, and then one of those men inherently will become the next leader of the group. And there's a lot of positions in F3 that they've created for leaders, and that's essentially the goal is to create more leaders through the group, because now that I'm not technically leading in F3, the leadership principles that I hold from what I've learned in Q-Source and learned from guys like you play a very large role in my day-to-day life.
Who do you think, don't say everyone, because I know everyone, but somebody's listening right now, what would be the perfect kind of candidate that if they joined F3, their life has a tremendous impact right away?
I picture a guy that's got this isn't the only guy, because you're right, but a guy that's got a good job, that's got a wife and kids, 43 years old, likes long walks on the beach. To me, that guy's going through life and he's feeling success, but he's feeling something that's not there. He's going out to dinner with friends, but they're his wife's friends and their husbands. And he realizes, like, if I'm ever in a dark place, I'm not going to go to Jenny's husband to talk about that, because it's going to go right back to Jenny. It's not the kind of relationship that guy needs. So it's that guy who's on the soccer sideline. That was me, man. That was on the sideline. That was me. I had a great job. I had a lot of great things going for me. In fact, when I got into F3, I was running 100 miles a month. Like, I had a great thing going. But my buddy Chris was like, no, you need this. Like, you need to surround yourself with the men that are in this group to not only make you a better runner, which it did, but also allow me to learn more about what it's like to lead. I mean, I was coaching a soccer team, and that's how I met Chris, because his son was on the team, and I had a lot of things going for me. I could have kept going in life happy that way. But what I didn't realize that was missing was that camaraderie, that fellowship, but also that accountability. Because, I've lost 45 pounds since standing on that soccer sideline. I've run more half marathons. I've done triathlons. I've done rucking. I've carried telephone poles over the Ringling Bridge, just because I had to challenge myself. I had to do things that I didn't think I was capable of doing. That's the guy who needs F3. It's the guy that's successful, but there's something missing. And they may not even realize they're missing it. They'll realize it once they join us. So, yeah.
Pretty much, if you're watching David Goggins' videos and you're getting inspired, but you still feel like you're not doing enough, come join F3. We'll help you out.
Yeah.
Man, so quick shout out to your son, if you don't mind. He's quite a stud, right? You talked about coaching soccer field. Tell us a little bit about Liam, what he's doing, what his future looks like. That's so freaking cool.
It is cool, man. He was a soccer player. I started coaching him back when he was like 6 or 7, and it was only because the coach that he had was not living right and hadn't gotten right. Really was not a good leader. And the wife turned to me and said, "You could do a better job than this guy." Fast forward, Liam is now no longer a soccer player. He's now a football player, and he is heading off to college to kick for my alma mater up in Cleveland, John Carroll University. But Liam always loved soccer and never had that burning desire to play in college. Like, whenever we talked about it, it was like, eh. But he got an opportunity to go play some flag football, and they needed a kicker. He also watched the Bears kicker lose to the Eagles in the NFC Championships with the double doink where he hit the crossbar twice and the ball didn't go in. And the next day he wanted to go kick. He's like, I want to be that next kicker. I want my Chicago Bears to go to the Super Bowl because I didn't miss the kick. So we did. We went to the field the next day. He started kicking, kicked for this flag football team at the high school that he was playing for. And, they're literally putting the uprights up on the field. He's homeschooled, but he was kicking for a small private school here in Sarasota. They're putting the uprights up, and he starts kicking on them, and he's hitting 40 and 45-yard field goals. And even his coach, Coach Matt, comes up to me and said, who taught him this? Like, this isn't natural. And the answer was he taught himself. Like, he watched YouTube videos, and we get out there, and so fast forward, he's now being trained by Steve Christie, former NFL great, Buffalo Bills kicker for 9 years, and then has done some other training with another guy that runs a showcase, and got ranked 14th in the nation with corn blue kicking, 4.5-star kicker. His PR is a 63-yard kick. Puts kickoffs he puts in the back of the end zone from the college levels. So I look at Liam, and even my daughter's the same way with her passions. They apply themselves. I mean, so I mentioned he's going up to play football for John Carroll University. He chose to not play soccer his senior year out of fear of injury, but also fear of not having enough time to hit the gym and go kick. So he's kicking 2 or 3 times a week. He's at the gym 4 or 5 times a week, actually joined the track team because he knows if he's going to do cardio, he's got to have more reason than just go out and do a run, because he didn't pick that up from me. But yeah, it's crazy, man. I never in my wildest imagination would think that I was a football dad, but no less a football dad of a kid who's going to play college football. So
that's freaking awesome.
Yeah.
Where can people follow Liam? Because I know that's important. By the way, guys, if you're listening, just go give this kid a follow. He needs that.
Yeah, he's Liam Kelly _16 on X or on Twitter. He's also got a YouTube channel. I think it is Liam Kelly _16 on Twitter. Also, we can share the links in the podcast, I guess. He's a great kid. Just what he's done with his talents, his God-given talents. It's just mind-blowing. I mean, I spent Sunday with him over at the high school football field, and I noticed he was doing a few things differently. I'm like, Liam, like, you're not doing whatever with your hands. You're not. He goes, yeah, I want to try a few things out, Dad. Like, I just think it position my body a little bit differently, and he was getting more height on his kicks. He's a student of the game. Like, he will study videos of successful kickers to figure out what they're doing. When Steve meets with him on their training sessions, he's a sponge, and Steve Christie's been a phenomenal coach for him. He's a local guy, so it just so happens that Steve lives in the same town that you and I live in, and has the ability to get us on the field. And it's amazing to see what he's taking in, because he recognizes there are other people in this world that know a lot more than him about this, and he wants to be the greatest. And so he's doing all he can to perform when he gets to college. He doesn't want to sit on the bench. He wants to be the kicker his freshman year.
Man, so cool. I have no doubt that he will.
Yeah.
Dave, man, this hour like flew by. I can't believe it's been an hour. I want to freaking thank you for coming on and sharing all your wisdom and just being so open as you always are, and giving and being that servant leader. I appreciate you. Is there anything I did not ask you that I was hoping that you were hoping I would?
No, I think we nailed it, man. I really just encourage men that are out there listening to this, go to f3nation.com. If you're ready to just join a workout, you can go to f3near.me, and that'll have the map of every single workout that's near you. And I know we'll share my contact information on here, but if there's not a workout near you, reach out to me. I know a few guys that could help you plant a workout in your area, because it's not just a workout. It's life-changing in all aspects. And if you're ready for it, if you're open to it, just give it a shot.
Yeah. All right, guys. Hey, I'll see you on the next episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. If this is valuable to you, hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye, everybody.